Walk down into your basement right now, not later, right now in your head. What is actually down there? A water heater, some cardboard boxes you have not opened in 3 years. Maybe a treadmill that became a coat rack in month 2. For most people, that is the entire inventory. And that emptiness is the difference between a house that survives a real disruption and a house that falls apart by day 3. Here is the lie you have been sold, that a flashlight in a kitchen drawer and half a case of water bottles counts as being prepared. It does not. Most emergency kits in this country were built for a weekend power outage, a storm that knocks out the lights for a night or two, and then the trucks roll back in with supplies. That kit was never built for a sustained systemic failure, the kind where the grid stays down, the roads stay clogged, and the store shelves stay empty for longer than anyone budgeted for. No food depth, no water redundancy, no way to generate heat or light without a battery that dies in 6 hours or a grid that is not coming back on schedule. Subscribe now so you do not miss the rest of this list. Stay until the end for item number 7, the one piece of equipment sitting in almost nobody's basement, and the one that matters most the moment your stove stops working. Let's get into it. Number 1. A minimum 14-day supply of shelf-stable food, not 72 hours. Almost every official guideline you will find says 72 hours of food and water. That number was never built around your survival, it was built around an assumption that supply chains resume within 3 days. That assumption is aging badly. Look at any real disruption in the last decade, a hurricane, a port shutdown, a trucking strike, and you will see recovery windows stretch past a week more often than they resolve in 3 days. 14 days of food is not extreme, it is just math done honestly. Rice, dried beans, canned proteins, and shelf-stable meals rotated every 6 months cost a fraction of what people spend on takeout in a single month. Most basements have a case of water and a box of granola bars. That is not 14 days. That is barely one. Number 2, a gravity-fed or manual water filter plus stored water. Here is the part people never think about until the tap runs dry or runs brown. Your water pressure in most municipal systems depends on electric pumps. Kill the power for long enough, and the water either stops flowing or stops being safe to drink without treatment. A gravity-fed filter needs 0 electricity and 0 battery. You pour water in the top, gravity and a ceramic or carbon filter do the rest, and clean water comes out the bottom. Combine that with even 50 gallons of stored water, and you have removed one of the fastest killers in any prolonged disruption. Dehydration does not wait politely for the grid to come back. Most basements have a single case of bottled water. That lasts a household maybe 2 days if everyone is rationing carefully. Number 3. A propane or dual fuel heater rated for indoor use. This is the one people underestimate the most, and it is the one that kills the most people historically. Heat is not a comfort item in a prolonged outage, it is a survival item, especially anywhere that sees real winter. Hypothermia does not require a blizzard, it requires a house sitting at 40 degrees for 3 straight days while a family has no rated way to warm even one room. A dual fuel heater, the kind rated safe for indoor use with proper ventilation, runs off propane canisters that store for years without degrading. This is not the space heater plugged into the wall because that space heater is exactly as dead as the rest of the grid. Most basements have 0 heating redundancy whatsoever. They have a furnace that requires electricity to run and nothing behind it as a backup. Alright, 3 more. Number 4, a hand crank or solar-powered emergency radio separate from your phone. Your phone dies, it runs out of charge, it loses signal, or the network behind it simply stops functioning the way it always has. A hand crank radio does not care about any of that. You turn a handle, you generate your own power, and you get access to emergency broadcasts, weather updates, and information from outside your immediate area. Some models fold in a solar panel as a backup charging method, meaning even sunlight becomes a power source. This is the difference between being informed and being isolated, and isolation is where fear grows fastest. Most basements have 0 standalone radios. The entire household's information plan runs through one device, and that device has a battery that will not last the week. Number 5. A stocked first aid kit built for real injuries, not just band-aids and aspirin. Here is the uncomfortable truth. In a prolonged disruption, hospitals are overwhelmed, understaffed, or simply unreachable because the roads are impassable. A real kit needs to go beyond the drugstore basics. Think gauze, actual wound closure strips, a tourniquet, antiseptic in quantity, and medication for things like infection, not just headaches. The goal is not to replace a hospital, the goal is to stabilize a real injury for long enough that a hospital becomes reachable again. Most basements have a small plastic box with some band-aids and expired ointment. That kit handles a paper cut. It does not handle a deep laceration or a broken bone, and those injuries do not wait for convenient timing. Number 6. Physical printed copies of critical documents, sealed and waterproofed. This one gets skipped because it feels bureaucratic, not dramatic. But think through what actually happens if your phone dies, your laptop is unreachable, and the cloud service holding your documents needs an internet connection you no longer have. Identification, insurance policies, medical records, property deeds, all of it becomes inaccessible at the exact moment you might need it most, whether that is proving identity, filing a claim, or getting urgent medical treatment for someone with a known condition. A printed, waterproofed copy sealed in a simple plastic sleeve costs almost nothing and takes an afternoon to assemble. Most basements have none of this. Every important document a family owns lives entirely inside a device that depends on power and a network to function. And now, the one I told you to stay for. Number 7. A manual, non-electric way to cook, like a camp stove or a rocket stove. This is the item almost nobody has, and it is the one that determines whether 14 days of stored food actually becomes 14 days of real meals. Your kitchen range, whether it is electric or even gas in many modern homes, still relies on an electronic ignition system or a blower motor that needs power to function safely. Kill the grid, and that range becomes a very expensive countertop. A basic camp stove running off small propane canisters, or a rocket stove which burns small pieces of wood with remarkable efficiency through basic combustion physics, needs nothing from the grid whatsoever. This is not about survivalist theater. This is about the simple fact that raw rice and dry beans are useless without a way to cook them. Most basements have all the food and none of the method. That gap is exactly what turns a 14-day food supply into a 14-day pile of inedible ingredients. So let's bring it back together. None of this is about fear, and none of it is about turning your basement into a bunker. Every item on this list exists to close one gap, the gap between having supplies and having a functioning plan. That gap is where the real danger lives. Call it the false sense of security. The moment someone says, "I have some stuff downstairs," without ever actually checking what is down there, whether it still works, or whether it was ever built for more than a single bad weekend. The people who make it through a real disruption calmly are not the ones with the most gear stacked in a corner. They are the ones who actually inventoried what they own, rotated the food before it expired, and tested the radio before they needed it. This is the entire philosophy behind everything on this channel. Preparation rewards discipline over accumulation. It rewards the person who checked their basement this month over the person who bought a kit 5 years ago and never opened the box again. A basement is not storage. A basement is a decision you already made long before anything ever went wrong. So here is my question for the comments. Out of these 7 items, how many do you actually have sitting in your basement or garage right now? And be honest, when is the last time you actually checked if they still work? And if you think buying the gear is the hard part, you are wrong. And that mistake is exactly what leaves people standing in a dark basement holding equipment they never once tested. That is exactly what the next video breaks down.